The One Stroke Video Library series featuring Donna Dewberry is presented by
Plaid Enterprises Incorporated, bringing quality paints, mediums, stencils, and other tools to painters worldwide.
Hi, I'm Donna Dewberry. I am so glad you could spend some time with me today. Don't you just love flowers? They are a favorite subject for decorative painters. And did you know that you can paint dozens of different flowers by learning just a few simple strokes and techniques? Today I'm going to show you how to paint over 30 different flowers using my technique. And the first thing I have to do is teach you how to load the brush. And it's very simple, but it's the very most important thing that you need to learn when you get started with one-stroke painting. We're going to take water-based acrylic, and we're dampening our flat brushes. These are one-stroke brushes. They're nice and flat. And we're going to take a double load. First thing, always double loading first. I'm going to pick up some yellow and green, and I'm going to work this into my brush. Now, if you see, I go corner to corner, pushing very hard to work it in. I might want some white in here. So as I'm working this in, I might decide, I want to lighten that yellow up a little bit. I just dip over into the white. Work it in. Now your brush needs to be full of paint. Now the only time we use water is when we first dampen the brush, and then after that I don't want you to go into the water. We're at least 2/3 up the bristles before we get started. Now if you're going to start painting and you're on a dry surface, and especially paper, I'm on a poster board here, but if you're on regular paper, what you would want to do is dip into this floating medium. And this is the fluff that's inside paint with no pigment in it. So it stays, has long open time, just like your paint does. All right? So the first thing we're going to do is look over here at some of these flowers. I've kind of grouped them into like 6 different arrangements of flowers that I want to teach you the strokes as we go here through the day. And what we're doing is we're taking different types of strokes, and these are all kind of made alike, but just a little bit of technique that makes them look differently when we're layering them. So the first thing I would do, see all these leaves and stems? On most of these flowers, I will pull the stem down first. So I would start up here, kind of where I want it to be placed on my piece, and I will start pulling my stems down. Go and pick up more paint, pull another stem here, and the hyacinths, to do that one, I would pull that stem up, and see I need more paint there. You can see when it's kind of dry. I'll just get more paint, restroke right over that. All right, and maybe a few over here. And we could always come back and add a few more later. Then I'm going to wait and go put in the leaves afterwards, because then I know where I kind of need some placement. The easiest flower to start with is the daisy. I'm going to pick up the yellow and gold, maybe even a little bit of white. I did white over here on our piece, but I'm going to don't want to do white on a white poster board so you can see. Now the first thing we're going to do is these are chisel edge strokes. So we touch, we lean towards the center, and we pull. And it's just that simple. If you don't lean very much, they're very skinny little strokes. You can even go over one. Say, I still don't like that. See that? All right, all the way around. All right, I'm going to pick up. And if you vary between what shades you pick up, it even looks more like you've shaded it, and it has a more natural look than all being one light color, okay? Then I can do a partial one. Okay, and then all I'm going to do for this is I'm going to take the green on the end of my brush. I just dip, I'm going to come here, and I can either dot it around, adding some yellow. Okay, very simple. Now, if I wanted to put yellow, go ahead, same thing on the brush, add a little bit of yellow. Very simple. You can do all kinds of colors, and you can layer those. Now let me show you. Let's look right here. See this one? See how we're layering these different from the outside in? Now I pushed a little bit harder. This is the one I did do over here, and now I'm going to push a little bit harder. So what we're going to do on this is I'm going to pick up some orange. This is a pure orange. Ever so lightly. I'm going to leave the yellow on my brush, just go over and pick up some orange also. All right, now on this one I'm just going to push. See that? I touch, push down, pull. all the way around. And this is how we do on a lot of these type of flowers. We have a chrysanthemum, a zinnia. We have all these different types of flowers that grow in the garden. Very simple strokes. And I made sure that I included all kinds of flowers in this video that would be the flowers that you would use all the different seasons of the year. Because there's all different ones that you would use during the winter months, during the spring months, and it's always nice to know how to do those. And I've tried to put different ones that you won't see me do in other places. They're all fresh and new, okay? Now, see, when I don't see the shading, I'm going to come in here and make sure that it's really bright. If it's not bright, I might even add a little bit white. See what I'm going to do here? See how I'm losing my stroke? Go right back over it. Make sure that you see that. Continuing to go to the center. Now, we have a couple of other little ones that you might, let's add a little bit of berry wine on these. Some of these they're wiggled. You kind of make them not so straight. All right, and you just do layers of that all the way to the center, just like I was showing you before. All right, a little bit more. Okay, a little bit more, all the way around, okay? Same thing with that, we're going into layers. Now, I'm going to show you the dahlia. And that one, we're just going to push harder, a lot harder. Okay, and you can use a number 12. I'm using the big brush because I wanted you to see it a little bit closer. Not hard enough. I don't want to do it hard enough so we have straight tips, but just a little bit harder than that. See, you just can increasingly get harder on that. Then we have the zinnia, and on the zinnia, it's more of a flat pull, flat pull. I want it, see how those tips are real straight? You want to concentrate on making sure they stay straight all the way around. And then the same thing is you're going to keep picking up paint and layering it, making sure, see, I can't see that stroke, so I want to make sure that I put enough paint that you see the layers as you're coming in on that. Then, and you can also curve those down, see? It's got some curved, you push, pull up, push, pull up. Then if we're doing a chrysanthemum, I want to show you how I'm going to layer that. I'm going to start in the back, one higher one, and then these curve inward. See that, how they start curving inward? Then I'm going to do my next layer, remembering I'm telling you to make sure you use colors so that they contrast so you can see the layers. That's real important. All right, continuing. See that upward movement? Then you can have a few coming from the bottom up. Now, those I love because they're real simple and they're kind of fun too. All right, then I'm going to pick up a number 12. Let's go over here to the hyacinth. And I'm going to pull some purple on this so that we have some other variations of colors, because I pretty much used the Indian red, the pure orange, the berry wine wicker white so far. Let's add a little bit of purple and white. All right, this is dioxazine purple and wicker white. And it's the same thing, but it's a small brush and we're pushing and pulling. See that? And we're probably going to do like 4 or 5 on each. We're smaller at the top. See how I'm bringing in? See the streaks? That's what you want to see. You want to see the streaks in between the purple and the white. And if you notice, quite often I'm picking up paint, I'm stroking right next to the second color, and I'm stroking little strokes at a time. White, stroke next to the purple. Now when I'm using the larger brush and I'm doing chisel edge strokes, what I want you to understand is that you want to flatten this brush out so the bristles are flat so you get a nice flat stroke. You're going to continue that all the way down. Take the hand off your brush and just occasionally dot those. Now inside the other flowers that have centers like this, we want to make sure that we dot, 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 just a little bit. You can use a little scruffy. If you have an old brush, you can make a little scruffy brush. You can dot the center of it with the corner of this brush. And I want to show you these leaves. These leaves, before we go to our next selection of flowers, I want to show you these leaves are a little bit different because these over here on the hyacinths are nice smooth strokes. Let me do that again. Nice smooth strokes. All right. But most of these other type daisy leaves, you push 1, 2, 3, and then we wiggle out, in to the tip. Wiggle out, in, all the way to the tip. And then we pull our stem into it. Make sure that you do a few coming down. Watch this. Your eyes should be looking at that green edge, the outer green edge, as you're doing this leaf. See this? And it actually is pretty simple. If you sit, I like to take pictures of flowers, put them in front of me, and copy their leaves as I go. Now, last thing is that you come up to the bottom of a bud. You're going to go 1, 2, 3, or 4. You want to grab that bud with little chisel strokes. Same thing actually we're doing with the daisies. Pull it down, and you're ready to go. Now, we're going to go to our next selection. You just keep filling in with the leaves. Our next selection that we're going to talk about and paint with you are pretty things like geraniums, a Christmas cactus, which is different, some sweet peas and violets. You can paint a lot of violets really simple, and these are actually fun, simple strokes. But I want to show that you put a little edge to your flowers, like these little edges here, are a little bit different than this, but actually almost the same stroke. But what we've got here is some really attractive extra colorations into your leaves, which are pretty simple. So the first thing I want to do here is let's add a few of our stems while my brush has already got the green and yellow for your geraniums, okay? And they kind of curve and come down. Curve, come down. I love painting flowers. They're sometimes the hardest, most of the time, the hardest technique and most other thing to learn with most other techniques. But with my technique, it's like the first thing you learn because I make flowers so simple. And I think you're going to have fun as you're learning my technique. Now what we're going to do here with this leaf, it's a little tricky. You just put a V, and then you go 1, 2, 3, and then you push hard and you wiggle all the way around. Now you can't make it all the way around unless your wrist can do a complete circle here. So I start here and then come back around and meet. But I want a nice transition there, okay? And then you would pull the stem ever so carefully into there. And we're going to let that dry while we paint something else, and we'll come back and shade it. And the same thing over here, we want, you know how sometimes I told you stems come up and sometimes they go down. This is a larkspur, and it's kind of like a wildflower. And I might put the leaves down here. See, we're going to slide that side. And then we'll come back and paint that flower. All right, now the Christmas cactus. It's a little bit different. And you know how I started at the bottom before? Well, let me show you this. The main focus of this flower is the greenery that's holding the blossom. So to do this, I was experimenting with this and playing around, and I realized if we start at the top and we're kind of wiggling all the way up and coming back down, then we touch always at the base of that, wiggle and come back down the other side, because this is where it kind of sprouted off. But you've got to layer this from the top going down for it to look right, and you might want to go over it a few times till it looks good to you. Trying to come down smoothly at the end, wiggle up, slide back down. See my little finger supporting me there? Now, those blossoms turned out really pretty. Look at those blossoms over there. And it's kind of like we were doing before. The strokes start here, we chiseled and pulled down. So let me show you that really quick. I used some Indian red, believe it or not. That is Indian red and wicker white. So I'm picking up the white, some Indian red. It gives you kind of a light pink color. But you got to work that into your brush. I picked up white. My palette's kind of smearing together here, so I'll have to get some more paint on another plate in a minute. But what I'm going to do on this is we're really going to kind of not do a skinny little chisel. We're going to kind of touch, and I usually lead with a lighter color when I'm doing chisel strokes, but what we're going to do this time is we're going to touch, lean with the darker color, and pull, because I want to get, see the streaking here? I want to get all those nice colors, and I even had a little yellow in there, which is fine, okay? And if you notice, every time I come away from the from my painted piece here, I'm picking up paint. That's how often I want you to pick it up. And I'm just going to go all the way around, just like, see, we're not having to let anything dry in between. We're picking up paint on top of paint and getting that nice shading and not having it bleed into the next color. Then we're going to come right here just kind of set the center, chisel edge a little bit out of there. Now see how that gave it some depth right away? Well, now what I'm going to do is I might let it dry normally, but I'm not going to this time. I just picked up thick, nice paint. I'm going to touch, pull, and these are our centers. I'm going into the yellow light, a little bit school bus yellow, and see how you put your center in there? Very simple. Now what we're going to do is we're going to pick up the same red and white again. I'm going to get that yellow out of it because I don't want it all to be on there right now. And we're going to do the geranium. And we're picking this up. Let's get a little bit more white. Lots of paint. I want you to keep lots of paint because, I mean, what people like about my technique usually is that you paint quicker, but it's because I keep lots of paint out there and I have multi-brushes of the same size, and then I just start painting. Now what we want to do here, we want to come over here and look at the red edge of this. See how I'm wiggling that edge, and then I slide back down. I wiggle and slide back to the center. Wiggle, slide back, all the way around. And I do at least 4 to 5 petals. It's usually better to have 5. All right? And you want to make sure that you concentrate on those not being too big. There we go. So as we're doing this geranium, we want to make sure that we just think about the colors that geraniums are out there. And sometimes you can have the light pink blooms, and you can make this a real rich red by using like a burnt carmine or something with some other dark color, like berry wine even, on the edge of this engine red. But I thought it'd be kind of fun to do this lighter color. All right. Actually, I keep going. I can add a little bit of yellow. Look what happens when I add a little bit of yellow in the center. See how I overlap right on top of my strokes I've already done? I'm just actually just dipping the red, the engine red, when I go over here as I'm picking up for the geranium. And then I'm going to show you what it looks like to switch the brush around. Look at what happens when I flip my brush and just put the white on the outside. See that color? Well, now what we're going to do is go and put a few of these little green buds that are in the bottom of the geranium. You push and pull back to the center. You can use a number 8 even for this. I just got my number 12 here, but see how it looks kind of like they're not blossomed out yet? Pull from here. And then, while we're right here, I'm going to go down and put some of that red in the leaf. Now to do this, I'm going to pick up the floating medium, get a teeny bit of red, engine red, work it in. Okay, you want it worked in really nice. And then this has to be totally dry. And look what happens when you go in there and just wiggle this around that edge. Isn't that fun? I love doing that. All right, now to do these larkspurs, just like we were doing earlier, I want to show you that we just take, I'm going to just use purple right here because it's the same thing. We're chisel edging down. Then we're going to take, and look at this. See that wiggling up? Wiggling up just like we were doing kind of on the geranium. See this? Wiggle up, pull down, wiggle up, pull down. Same kind of petal. And then on the sweet pea, let me get some blue on this and show you. On the sweet pea, what we're doing is the same kind of blossom, but it's not such a rigid ruffle up there. It's more of a smooth curve, just like our violets are going to be. And so I'm going to use the same color to do both of those and just kind of show you that look. This is a sweet pea. It's a lot more rippled, more paint. If it's not looking right, have really dry edges, you can go to floating medium or get more paint. Now the sweet pea just has real ruffled layers, okay, right on top. See that? Just real fluffy. Little buds are kind of like this. Chiseled edge. All these are kind of fun, simple chisel edge strokes. Violet, you push, lift. You start on your chisel, push, lift. It's like a teardrop. Can you see that? Just push, lift, all the way around. All right? And remember, I like to take and overlap a few of those sometimes. A little bit. You can do hydrangeas this way too. But we're going to show you a more detailed hydrangea later. Then you always go back, you put your centers always, and pull your leaves and stems from those. Sometimes you can put the stems in before if you need placement, or like these, you can go in here, grab that little bud, pull it down. All right. Same thing, these violets have those curved stems where all the little buds are coming from, and they get a really big leaf. All right, then what we're going to do is put a little center in there. Let me show you these centers real quick because they're all little simple centers. We're just going to dot these, and I'm putting the yellow and green on my brush at the same time. Come way up here, and these are bright. If it's yellow, it really needs a nice center there, and see how it just, those start popping and coming alive. So there we have a few more flowers, and lots of fun little strokes, but they make you look like you're so, like you've learned, like a fine artist would learn all this shading and detailing, and you really are just beginning. Okay, so the next project we're going to start, we're going to go over some carnations, which is a little bit like the strokes we were kind of doing before, but even more rippled edges, and marigolds, which are fun. So what we're going to do here is we're going to start with a carnation. Now, I played around with this, and it got really, I really liked the progress I was getting as I was stroking it. It was really starting to look like a carnation, and I got really excited, and I think you will too, because I never really would work with them because I thought, oh, they look too hard. I don't think so. Well, just go play with it. I think you'll have fun just practice, trying some of my strokes and practicing with a flat brush, adding lots of paint. Remember that. Now, what we're going to do on those carnations is watch. Remember how I was doing earlier? These are real jagged, real jagged. So where are your eyes watching? Your eyes are watching that red. See that red edge? Remembering, like, here's your focus. That's where you're coming back to. That's where your stem's going to be. So the outer edge, we always paint the back of the flower first. So I'm making sure they're real jagged. And if you look at a carnation, you'll see that they're really rigid, jagged, little, like, torn edges. And when I added the yellow to this, it was just outstanding, the pretty colorations that you could get. Now, it doesn't look as great until you put the green on it, but then all of a sudden it just comes alive. All right, I'm going to add just a little yellow and show you how nice that looks. See? Make a little bud that way. Actually, their buds are kind of like little curved buttons like this. All right, and then you put a little green around it. But what we're going to do is I'm going to show you that this little leaf on here is just a little bit different than the other leaves. So we'll show you how that kind of happens. We're going to pull these little chisel strokes. That's what I was showing you on our first flowers. Just small little chisel strokes, not pushing very hard. And we're always leading with the lighter color when we're pulling these stems, okay? Now, when we're coming up here to this bud, we're going to do these little strokes right around that bud. Watch this. We're going to touch, lean, and pull. Lighter color going first, and they're just small little, really close leaves up against the stem. All right? Look at some real carnations. Look at the flowers in botanical books, and it'll help you see their foliage also. All right? Same thing when I was doing my gladiolas. They're not gladiolas, they're marigolds. All righty? Now what we're going to do on these, let me show you why I've got the green in my hand. On the marigolds, it was a push-pull. You touch, lean, pull. Touch, lean, pull. And we're doing this all down along the stem. And you know what happens as you're doing this, that's kind of how you do fern too. As you're doing this, you might want to come back in and clean it up afterwards, okay? Just fun little leaves like this, little strokes. All right, same thing happened when I was doing the marigolds. I was watching the flower blossoms and the petals, and what really looks great about them and really kind of makes them look like a marigold more than anything is how they have that base on the bottom. So you do a couple of things. You could start with the base. Look over here real quick. I have a base here and a base here. But I'm just going to show you, we're going to put that base on right after we do the strokes. And what I did, they have a nice pure orange, bright orange, and then to get some shading, I wanted to have a nice yellow edge. So I'm going to get my brush all loaded with the pure orange, and then I'm going to work into some of the sunny yellow. All right? Yellow light, I think is the color I'm using here. All right, we're going to take really rippling. Now these are rippled, they're not those jagged edges. Nice smooth ripples. All right, but you want to see the layers. And I think that pure orange with that yellow is really what makes these pop. Okay, same thing we were doing before, you're just layering it. See, making sure that you can see those layers. And every once in a while, I picked up a little bit of white. Look what happens when I add a little bit of white. All right, and you can either do some little chisel edges at the bottom. Then we're going to add the base to that. So now what we want to do next, let's do the petunia. You say that right? All right, with the petunia, it was a little bit more tricky. Also putting down the stem first. I'm putting some white in the stem. I'm going to pull the stem. And those leaves on that were short little strokes this way. Okay, and then I pulled it to the stem. I would just get going, maybe even with a number 12. I just like to use that big brush all the time. And then I'm going to come in here, and I concentrated on the petals, the outer petals. So we're going to stroke up to the peak, and it had white in the middle, so I'm going to stroke down on the other side. I kind of left a gap. And what's most important is that right here. Right here, I just touched it by accident. Okay, start here, on each side all the way around, peak, come here, come to the other side, peak. And we did this like 4 times, 4 or 5 times. I think I have 5 in here. There we go. All right, now to make that really stand out, I wiped off all the paint and then I went and I grabbed some white. So I'm going to come right down the center, and I did a couple strokes down the center. And it's amazing how it starts looking like something. All right, we started out with a flower with deep purple shading with these big gaps in between, and then we just do this little chiseled stroke in between. And it was amazing to me how it started looking like what I was trying to make it look like. All right, now what we want to do at this point is go and set the center, and always put some greens and yellows. Remember, that always kind of gives it some depth. If it's not looking quite like you want it to look, or you can't get that depth in there, I just kind of tap this. See this? Tap in there. And then well, you can even, if you're not still seeing definition, you can even dot the center. All right? Now, when we did the center of the marigold, what I did with that, I left that center off with that one. Let me show you real quick. If I had a full marigold here, all I did was pull little green stems with a script liner. And I'll show you some of those and some other flowers as we go, but then I just dotted the center, the ends of each one of those. All right. Now, the bluebells, when we're doing bluebells, we've got the one main stem, and then what makes these look so cool is that you come off of them. See this? And make sure you leave plenty of room. Same thing again, I'm going to pick up some, let me switch my plates so that we can go right into this with the right color. Mostly white, and I'm going to pick up some blue, and we do the back of the petal, the back of the flower first. So it's bigger at the bottom, they get smaller as they go, but let me show you one of these before we go to our water lily. Okay, we're going to take and get the outer shape there. Then I go down to here, and I make my peaks. That would be in the back of the blossom, all right? Then I'm going to pick up fresh paint, and you can make it as light as you want. I did this kind of darker blue. I want you to be able to see it really good, and just do the front. And it's just as easy as that. And all you have to do, see that? All you have to do, and you smooth that on out, is you get smaller as you go. And when they're all on the same hanging there, they look so natural. It looks so good that way. Now, water lilies are really fun, and I've started painting a lot of them on bird baths and stuff, which are really fun. And I put them in the top where the water would go, and it just gives a whole really new look to a flower, mostly because I start out, I got a little too much purple in this one. Let me show you. I start out right here, push really hard, real hard. And you want a really big platter. Their leaves are really big here. All right, as hard as you can push on there. And you might even want to use a bigger brush sometime if you want a really big one. All right, and go around until you get that real nice and smooth. Sometimes you have a little bit too much paint right there. Then I started doing just little veins in that leaf because they do have some. Makes it look a little bit more natural. Then you've got to grab that and pull it down. Or you can kind of just disappear it in the back because it goes down into the water actually. All right? And then we're going to come in and we're going to use our number 12 and we're going to finish this up, this blossom up, with berry wine and wicker white. And on, this one's so easy, you're going to love it. All we're doing is we go up and we come back down. See the peak? Up, down. The white edge is going up. And then when these actually go to a point, okay? All the way up and come back down. That's your back layer, and then all you do is layer in front. All right, now what I want you to look at each flower as you're doing each flower that we're showing you, I want you to always start, learn the stroke, each little stroke, and then remember that most of the time we're picking up fresh paint each time and we just layer those flower petals. And if it looks muddy, you need to go get some more fresh paint. All right, every stroke, almost every stroke you pick up fresh paint. And you can make those bigger and bigger and bigger. And so you make a really pretty blossom. Lots of different shades of those too, which are kind of fun. Now, the most important thing were all the leaves. You look at the different leaves for the different flowers, and then you start building your flowers, deciding if the stem goes first or not. Now, we're going to do gladiolas, some hydrangeas, magnolias, and some of these petals, you're going to see, a lot of these petals are kind of alike. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to put some stems in so they're there for the flowers that need the stems, okay? Let's put these here, and I think I'm going to do the hollyberry too. I kept saying, is hollyberry really a flower? And it's right in there with the flower book. So, you know, maybe it's because I like to use them when I'm doing painting flower arrangements, one of the two. But they were in there with the floral botanicals, so who knows? All right. We put our stems down. Now look, these are dandelion leaves, and the jackal, you push and you lift. And I don't know if you're going to notice, if you go check birthday flowers, I put all 12 birthday flowers in here, so that if somebody's birthday and you want to feature that on a greeting card or something, you'll have them. All right, now let's do the gladiolas. It's a long stem, short little strokes. Okay, I go ahead and put a few of these. Usually I don't, but I'm going to go ahead and put some of these because the glads have these kind of behind some of the blossoms, and their leaves are long and slim. I'm leading with the lighter color on those. I push, lift, and curve. You can make them curve over, whatever. Then let me show you this holly. We're going to start at a point. We push, lift, push, lift. The key is the tips, the points. Do you see that? Push, lift, push, lift, push, lift. And see, I'm gradually turning my brush to the tip as we go. All right. Then I came in with some pine needles. Now see, my whole arm goes with this. I'm pulling my whole arm with it. I'm not flipping my wrist. Got to get more paint. Take your whole arm with it and you get a nice tip. Now you're slightly lifting the yellow as you go. And on those they're quite easy. All I'm doing is using the handle of my brush. Do little circles, big circles. Make them big berries. Okay? And then you can even come back and put a little highlight of white on them after you get through. All right, now with the hydrangea, and I'm going to put this one on there, its leaf on here too. With the hydrangea, they're always big, large leaves. And when I'm doing little cluster flowers, little clusters, little small bouquet, clusters of little blossoms, I always like to put a big leaf first. And so on those, I would put this big, large leaf in the background. And then, because it's hard to make that look like it's behind, lots of flowers I put first so that I have placement, makes it easier for me. But I'll show you how we'll start adding those hydrangeas on there. Now what we're going to do first is we're going to do our daffodils and our jackal, and those are pretty much alike. So I'm going to do one of those and show you how I would build that. How we start with the bottom blossoms are the ones that would be in back, and then we add on top of that. And I have some pure orange I used with this, and some yellow ochre, and a little red. If you start painting and the orange and the white don't give you enough depth, you can add a little bit of engine red to it too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up my yellow and my darker yellow ochre. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out to the point and slide back. Well, this is actually what we're going to do on the magnolia in a minute, and you'll see. The key is your eyes are supposed to be looking at the darker shade, the outer edge, and we're going to go push, come to the point, and slide back down. We don't lift off our palette, off our piece right here. We just stop after we get to that peak and we come back down. Now, what we did with the jackal is that I used white and yellow, and what I did was just do a side view of that, okay? But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and pick up my orange, and I'm going to do my base right here. It's like a U. Can you see that? It's real fun, just simple little stroke. Then I'm going to come in and I'm going to pick up some engine red because I want it to really show, and back to the holly. See how we did those points? Your eyes are supposed to be looking at that red with that orange on here, and see, I go and pick up paint every time I'm not here on my project. I'm going to pick up paint. So that's how often you need to get paint. So you lift to a peak, you keep turning your piece around. Lots of people think they have to leave it on the easel because I do, but I usually paint at my dining room table right in my lap, moving my piece around if I need to. Now see how that sets that there if you put another little U right there in the middle. Okay, and you can even go to that and pull some little strokes out of there. Okay, if you'd like to. Same thing. Okay, now what we want to do is we're going to do our gladiolus. Okay, all right. Then we're going to come over here, and we're just going to make buds first. Real simple. Up. Do a U, maybe another one, and stroke down. Just kind of layer those in here. And if you still see the stem, don't worry about it. You can put green over that as you're putting your leaves around there. Now to build the large gladiolus right here, we're going to go one back stroke, okay? Clean that up really nice. Then we're going to do our two side strokes. I'm wiggling those a little bit. Same stroke as we were doing up there on the daffodils, but we're wiggling a little bit. Right when we're out there doing the daffodils, the same movement that we were doing, okay? Then I'm going to use yellow on the outside here so it really shows. This is your main center front. Now you can see through because that's transparent because of the yellows, but if you're unhappy with that, just remember you don't have to do it on top of the greenery. You can move it to the side, or you can add a little bit of white, which will make that not so transparent. Put your little U there just like we did before, and I would probably take my strip liner or take the chisel edge and pull my stems from here, the stamens in the center of the flower. Pick up some white and some yellow, and then you're just going to lay your little tips on there. All right, now let me show you. Same stroke that we did with this flower right here, but smoother. When we did our daffodil, remember I was saying it's a lot like the magnolia? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to build this. We got the white and the butter pecan. So remember this, it's up and back down, up and back down, all the way around, following your stroke. And if you saw at the beginning of this session how I was showing you how that blossom looks, it's a very simple stroke. But see how as I'm peaking, I push hard and sometimes lift. It makes it look like it curves. You can leave it just like this, or you can add another layer inside. See that? And then when that dries up, we're going to come put our centers in. And to do that center, it's just a little bit of berry wine and schoolbush yellow. You can use your smaller brush in here if you would like to. But let me do it outside of the flower because that's still wet. We go up and over, and it's just these little U strokes going sideways, and you're layering those. And that's your center. All right, that's the center inside the magnolia. Then when we do our hydrangea, we can do those numerous colors. I love them because I use a lot of berry wine and blues, which are great for decorating. And all we do, this is a more detailed one than I've done before. we're coming up to a peak. Same thing, I wanted to show you this because it's the same stroke as we've been doing, but we do 1, 2, 3, 4 petals, okay? And then we can go and get some purple sometime, rotate, alternate colors between the pink and the purple. But see this? Up to a peak, push down, up to a peak, push down, all the way around, and you do 4 of them. And you don't always have to do 4. You can overlap it on top, and then go to the next flower and overlap it on top of there. And then just occasionally I'll come back, and you do this until it's in like a ball arrangement. And then you can come back and dot the centers. So I think we covered everything. I wanted to make sure that we did our magnolia, our holly, our hydrangea, daffodils, and jonquils. Now let's go to our next design here. We're going to change our paper again. Okay? Now what we're doing, I want you to look at this. Now the bird of paradise, it looked really dramatic, but it was really easy to do. And now the calla lily was a little tricky, so you might have to practice with that a little bit to get to there. But the foxglove is a wildflower, and I don't even know what this is called. I just called it a wildflower. It's kind of, somebody's going to write me and call me and tell me what it is. But I had fun painting them. I put them on a lot of pieces of furniture because they're so pretty. So what we're going to do, first thing, I'm going to squeeze out some fresh green and yellow because my paints are all getting together here. And don't be stingy with the paint. Remember what I told you. We're going to use lots of it because it's fun. You paint quicker that way when you have a lot of paint out. And then what we're going to do is, the first thing we do on that bird of paradise is we do this one big stroke to start with. And the stroke that I did has the red and the green with it. So it's a green forest. Let's wipe all that water off our brush. We're going to load it with all engine red, and then I just stroke right next to the green forest. Or we can use the thicket, whichever, depends on how dramatic you want the color to be. I think I like that thicket better. Okay, we start flat. We push, and we slide to the tip. All right, now that's just my basic underneath stroke. Okay, now, this is so simple you won't believe it. And it just takes a little bit of playing around till you get this down, but it actually was pretty easy after I got going on them, and they're fun. Always at first, when you're trying the first stroke, you can create any flower you want, just like I'm doing, but by looking at the flower petals and say, oh, that looks like that stroke I did before. Now see this? I am taking the pure orange and the yellow, I'm touching, pushing, and sliding to the tip. And I'm taking the lighter color to the tip, and every once in a while I picked up a little bit of white. See this? All right? Now I can come right out of that green and don't worry about it because I'm going to restroke on top of that right when I'm through. But what I want to do at this point is pick up fresh dioxazine purple and wicker white. And then I'm going to come right in here, and this kind of gave it that spark is when I added this purple. Come right here, and right on top of everything I do one stroke there. Isn't that color beautiful? And then one stroke there. Now to clean them all up here, I'm going to pick up that green again. The green and red. Looks like Christmas colors, huh? Okay. Lots of red. You want one nice stroke to clean this up. We're going to come right here, push. Now I want to make sure that I cover over where those strokes came from, and I'm not doing that, so let's do it again. Right here, we're going to cover right up here and slide to the tip. If I can teach you anything, it is not to be afraid of it and keep going back over it if it's not working like you want it to. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead. I want to show you how I add the green on here. I'm going to take the green and the yellow. I'm using thicket and yellow light on here quite a bit because it's so vivid. All right, so I'm going to stroke there, and stroke here. That's from the bottom. And then it was like, as you pull down, what happens is each one of these kind of stroke over that stem. All right? Just like that, all the way down. And you get a nice tall stem here, and you can keep doing that all the way down. This helps me. All right, now the calla lily. When we're doing him, or her, whatever we want to call them, what we want to do is I just kind of get my placement here. Now, on here, I'm going to use yellow and yellow ochre, any kind of bright yellow that you want to use. Okay, cleaning all that paint on my brush so I have a nice clean brush. Actually, I'm going to use a bigger brush, not a number 12, because I want you to really see that stroke really good as I'm doing it. Okay? Now, remember, if you can look at this calla lily. What we have, the bright yellow on the outside and the gold on the inside. Okay. Now, I kind of did the base first. I came down, did a U. Kind of got my placement. Now, I want that gold to be on the inside, so I started here, I pushed out, and then I came across, kind of tricky. You're going to say, yes, right, Donna. Well, if you just practice a little bit, it's not too hard. It was kind of fun after I got going because I can put that center in there, or I can just stroke back over it again, push, and cross back over. Now, people have asked me forever to show them how to do one of these, and I almost got it down pat. I think I've got it where it's kind of easy to do. We put our stem in there afterwards, and then we're going to come around here and do the back. And then when I started here, I pushed here and turned all the way around. All right? Now what you want to do is you want to be able to see that ridge here. So I might add a little bit of white so I can see that front ridge. And you can go right back over here and kind of stroke it till you can see that edge. All right? Now when I did the center, I just pounced the yellow ochre and some white with the chisel edge of the brush. And I started up here and kind of did the stamen in the middle. And you can restroke that again. Just remember, don't be timid. You can go right back over it and restroke that again if you want it, if you've gone over this, you want it in a little bit more detail. Okay? Now those aren't too bad. I've always been afraid of them, so I stay away from them, but they were easier than I thought. So I think you'll like them. Okay, now orchids. We're going to come in here. You've got to have stems. First thing you do, because they have all kinds of stems. You want some that curve. Their leaves are long, slender leaves. Can have lots of green or lime green. There's all, I mean, you know what? There's every kind of orchid you can imagine. But I'm just going to show you a few of the strokes that can make you look at any orchid you want and be able to do it, okay? Calla lily has this long, skinny leaf too. See how I push and just lift and you got all that shading? And the depth makes it look like it turns. Okay? Now, to do this orchid, I'm going to take my berry wine, wicker white. I'm working off 3 palettes here. What I'm doing, you notice my fancy palette, I've got a foam plate, works great for me. Then I can throw it away and don't have to clean it up. All right, notice I get lots of paint on this every time I start. On this one, we go to a peak, we come back down. Same stroke we were doing earlier on the last group of flowers, all right? Now, then we're going to do these strokes, the first strokes you did, like the daisy. You touch, push down, and lift as you come up. These are the little pieces that hang down, the little petals that hang down. So just look at any orchid and figure out the different strokes. This one you're going to push hard, watching the outer edge. Right here, you're going to push hard, watch the outer edge. See, I'm not twisting my wrist. Then I can come in with my small brush, and I'm going to use burnt carmine because it's really dark and intense. It's a pure pigment color, and it'll give you some like rich color because it needs some pizzazz right now, okay? So it's just as easy as what we're saying. We're going to pick up on this smaller brush. This is number 8 here. We're going to come in here, burnt carmine, make these 2 little circles, kind of like eyes almost. Come down to a point. I have a little bit of yellow in there, so I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more yellow on top. And then I would like to add some limey green in here. So I got a little bit of that yellow and green together. There's that thicket and that bright yellow. Add a little bit of green there. And you know what? You can always add a little bit more detail by coming in right in the center with some white and set that center a little bit more. And orchids are fun. Just remember, go look at them. There's lots of fun ones to do. Lots of different kinds. All right. Now the hollyhocks and these other trumpet flowers that I've painted, what I want to show you with those is that we're going to pick up white. Same thing on both flowers. We're going to take up white and let me get some red here. It's this stroke. It's the background. That's first. On the trumpet, it's the same thing. Let's turn it over. On On the trumpet, we had the darker edge first. All right, then what we're going to do is we're going to come right here. We're going to make our base, and then we're going to ruffle, real fresh white. We're going to ruffle this edge and pull. See that? Now, with the trumpet, I put the dark down first. I'm going to ripple, pull, and I don't worry about the base because the base is going to have all greenery on it. Okay? And that one, you know what? I didn't put the center in first. It's a lot easier to put the center first, so let me show you really quick so we can get all of our flowers in today. What we want to do is pull the center, and you want to do that before you put that layer on, because then when you're not having to try to make it look like it's under there. Then when you do this on top, you cover it right up and it does look like it's inside. Okay, and then when I put my leaves on it, they look really pretty. The inside of the hollyhock, besides it has a green stem. You grab it and then it comes back to the main stem, okay? But on this inside of it, I'm going to dip into yellow and my pink or whatever color and do the dots in here, just with the handle of my brush. But what we're going to do on this one, on this trumpet flower, is I streak through the yellow and the green, and I just do little teeny strokes like that. So those are all kind of different flowers. They have different little tricks to them. Remember the stems and all, putting those on, looking at the flower, and our last one, my favorite, are my roses. And you've seen my roses before if you've ever seen One Stroke. If you haven't, you're going to love it because they're so fun. Roses are everybody's most favorite flower. And what we're going to do is we're going to pick up, I'm going to use berry wine and show you all kinds of versions of how to do this. Same thing with our pansy, same stroke, really easy. And I'm going to show you very quickly here how you can make all these different blossoms. And so I'm going to mostly use purple, white, and yellow. All right. And the one that everybody's been waiting for me to do is a hibiscus. I'm going to throw him in here really quick first. And I'm using burnt carmine and engine red. Okay. And we want the burnt carmine to be on the inside. I'm grabbing paint for all my plates here. Okay. And the blossom on this guy, where's my floating medium? Put some of that on here. Okay. On the hibiscus, it's out and slide back. Now, don't want too much floating medium because you have a mess. But see how the burnt carmine's in the middle, and then you slide it all the way back down. Now this is real important. You got to put space in here, wiggle. Now this is really slick because it's poster board. But if you're on most of your painted surfaces, it won't be like this. But if you're actually painting on mailboxes or glass, you will have those streaks in there. So you could go over that a couple times. And I do have a little floating medium in it, so that's why you're seeing a little bit of that. Okay. All right. All right. Then we're going to come in the very center. Streak through some yellow and green, heavy paint, not inky paint. I put that center. Then all you do on these little stamens on here is you're pulling outward, which I would always do the stamens when it's dry, but I want to show you how to do this guy, so I'm going to go ahead and finish him up. Okay, little stamens all from the center. And then all I do, which is really easy, is you take your little finger and you just start dotting. And if it's not showing, see how I just kind of dot the yellow? If it's not showing, you can use some wicker white. And their leaves are really nice and big. But now let's do the rose to finish up. Now we have different ones. I have a camellia and a wild rose, pansies. The pansies and the roses all have the same petal. Real fun, simple petal. And all it is 1, 2, 3. You wiggle, and there's your first petal, all the way around. All right, now this is what you do when you want to do a wild rose. You do this, and then we put yellow and green in the center, and that's all the wild rose is. We just pounce in the center with some yellow and green and pull stems out of it, just like I did earlier with some flowers. But if I'm doing the full rose, I'm going to do a U, bud in the center, and then right off these lines right here, I am going to add the next layer of petals. See where your eye is supposed to be looking? They're supposed to look at the white edge of those petals, because that's what you see when your whole design is done. I'm working off those center lines again for the bud, okay? You're going to touch, lean out, slide across, touch, lean out, slide across. And let me show you why that's so important, because I'm going to show you the camellia, and what I did on that is I just did curves. Same thing that I just did before, right here. Smooth curves, no wiggling. And then I just kept doing this down to the center. And when I did the center on this camellia, I did one stroke there, and as I came into I stopped in the middle. See how I stopped in the middle of the bud? And then I crossed across. All right, and then I filled on in the petals and put some leaves around it. Now, those are pretty easy, but let me show you what happens when we do the pansy. I'm going to take the same brush, left some berry wine in it, picked up some dioxazine purple, and I'm going to do a rose petal. I'm going to overlap it. Oops, more purple. Overlap it with another rose petal. Now look what happens if I add some yellow. I'm going to flip the brush over. Look what happens. Isn't that fun? All right, we're going to flip the brush over, put the yellow, and we're taking this right on top of wet paint. You see how nice your shading is still? It's thick, creamy paint. It's FolkArt paint, and it's got this thick, creamy consistency with vivid colors, and there's nothing else that will get that unless you're using oil paints. And we're not. We're using water-based acrylics. But the key is there's three things that are important as you're doing my technique, and that is that you put enough paint on your brush that you load it properly, that you hold your handle straight up and down, and that you put pressure. And so many people don't push hard enough when they're doing their strokes, and that makes such a difference. We're going to put the center in this pansy, push, lift, first little strokes we were doing at the beginning of our lesson here, okay? And then we're done. Now, I don't know about you, but I love painting flowers, and I'm so happy that you came and spent this time with me today. And I hope the things I've shared with you will fill your year full of flowers.
The One Stroke Video Library series featuring Donna Dewberry is presented by
Plaid Enterprises Incorporated, bringing quality paints, mediums, stencils, and other tools to painters worldwide.